Okay, this is a game in which my Astral Communion Druid is going up against a Mage at rank 9. So I have Astral Communion and I have Darnassus Aspirant and I have the coin. I can't cast it on turn 2. Now what I'm thinking right now is it's turn 1, I can coin out my Aspirant, but I want to be absolutely sure that I can cast Astral Communion on turn 3 because turn 4 is too slow. So I know if I coin out the Aspirant, then I'll have an extra mana crystal. But if he kills the Aspirant, then I may be stuck waiting until turn 4 and then probably having to decide that I can't afford to risk top decking and throw out my 2/5 drops if I'm going to be drawing the fourth. If I'd known I was going to be getting Wild Growth, uh, I would have coined out the Aspirant on the first turn. But since I couldn't have predicted that, I played it safe and I held on to the coin to make sure that I'd have a turn 3 Astral Communion. And sure enough, he had a Frostbolt, and he knew that he didn't want me to have that extra mana crystal, so he killed it, and now I wouldn't have been able to cast it if I hadn't kept the coin. I got both Wild Growths, which I don't need anymore, so it's okay to get rid of them. Unfortunately, I am losing Nexus Champion Sarad, Nefarian, and one of my Druids of the Claw. But now I have, like I said, no cards against a mage with two creatures on the board, a mad scientist and a mana worm, and 4 cards in his hand. But he's having his turn 4, and the next turn for me is going to be like a turn 10 with whatever I draw out of the deck. I'm taking 4 damage, so I got to be a little bit careful because a mage can definitely finish me off with his spell damage if I get too low. But I'm still going to be taking cards from my Ancient of Lore. And this is really lucky that I get this card draw. I'm going to go ahead and Hero Power because I can't cast a 7-drop or 9-drop. But I can next turn, even though it's only going to be a 5th turn for me. So he has got a 7-drop on the board already on turn 5 that he has to deal with. He's going to Fireball it. And my creature's been wiped off the board, but that is a very powerful spell for his druid, and I don't want to be taking any more damage from this, so I'm going to go ahead and drop Cenarius. Cenarius is, of course, a 9-drop that he's now having to deal with on turn 6. Uh, he's got a 3/3 and a 2/2, and Cenarius' battle cry, not really a battle cry, it's choose one, is that he summons 2/2/2 taunts, which stops his attack cold and leaves me with this very large body on the board that at this stage of the game is pretty difficult to deal with, especially when he's already had to fireball a 5/5. So as you can see, that these cards that are in this deck get value if I can get them out on the board early. And Astral Communion is one way I get him out onto the board, but it's not the only thing that's available to me. He's now spending a card to slow down Cenarius, but Cenarius is still at 5/5, and he's going to Unstable Portal. Now that Mana Worm is getting really big, and my health is getting a little bit low, so I'm going to have to kill that Mana Worm. And I got Nourish, so I can kill the Mana Worm and Nourish. Now he's got a secret out. Mages are actually not a good matchup for this particular deck because when you're top decking after Astral Communion, you pretty much have to play whatever you've got on the board. And mages play Mirror Entity, which is a secret for 3 mana that creates a duplicate of any minion your opponent creates. Now, there are answers to this, and you'll see 3 of them in my hand right now. I've got my Keeper of the Grove, who's a big part of his cost and his value is tied up in what he does when he comes into play. He either silences a uh, a minion, or he deals 2 damage and probably kills a small minion. So after that, he's only a 2/4 on the board, which isn't a great value for the 3 mana and the card that he's spent on his Mirror Entity. Certainly, that's not what he wants to be seeing. He doesn't get a silence out of it. And then I've got Darnassus Aspirant. Uh, yeah, I'm detecting, I'm suspecting his Mirror Entity, so I want to play my Darnassus Aspirant. His battle cry is that he, now I'm thinking, that I may not want to lose my Cenarius to his Abomination. Okay, so I played the Darnassus Aspirant. Now, Darnassus Aspirant has a battle cry where he gives you a mana crystal, which I don't need because I have 10, and a death rattle where one of your mana crystals is destroyed. So since he was brought into play by the mirror entity, his battle cry isn't going to do anything, and his death rattle is still active. So he got a 2-drop for his 3-drop spell, and he lost a mana crystal. He's not happy right now. And I got control of the board. But I'm at 15 health, and that's a precarious situation against a mage. He's used one of his fireballs and one of his frost bolts already. I've got to kill off Emperor Tharasan because I know that he's using that in preparation for an Archmage Antonidas turn. And of course, what I drew this turn, which was another Astral Communion, is obviously no help. I can play it, and it will give me an excess mana, but my hand has to be empty. And since I've gotten several card draw cards, it's not. So I won't be using that Astral Communion. And when I don't play Astral Communion and I just play this as a regular ramp deck, Astral Communion becomes a little bit of a liability because it's just a dead draw in my deck. I never consider playing that card after turn 4, and really, I rarely consider playing it after after turn 3. So it'll just sit in my hand for the rest of the game when I draw it. Luckily, this deck has some pretty decent card draw, and since the cards in it are so big, I'm generally not playing. He got lucky with the Flame Cannon and got the one minion that could have taken out his Sledge Belcher. But I got Ragnaros, which is lucky but not super lucky because my whole deck is full of huge minions like that. I lost the Aspirant, I lost the Mana Crystal, but it doesn't matter because I'll get another one at the start of the next turn, and so I'll never have a turn where I'm down a Mana Crystal as a result. He had Effigy, which is a secret that brings into play when a minion dies, another minion of the same cost. It's a really powerful card. His Sledge Belcher had its Death Rattle, and then he got another 5-drop. Luckily, Ragnaros had my back that time. He plays Nexus Champion Sarad, who I think is a very good card. And then he uses a 0 power, kills my Keeper of the Grove, and gives himself a spell. So Sorcerer's Apprentice there, gang up. That's a really powerful play, and that's a really lucky get out of Nexus Champion Sarad. So my I got Druid of the Claw, and obviously I want to get him out there so that he can't hit me with his Sarad next turn. Then I'm going to take out his Sledge, hopefully reduce Ragnaros' chance of... and Ragnaros takes out Nexus Champion Sarad, which saves me from getting hit by other spells. But now he's got 3 Ragnaroses in his deck and only 14 cards. So I'm empty in my hand. He's got 4 cards. I got 2 on the board, and one of them is Rag. But he's got, 10 mana now, so my difference has been neutralized. He was building up to Archmage Antonidas. Fortunately, I did force him to use up most of his spells. And he Flame Cannons, and Antonidas gives him a Fireball, and his Flame Cannon hits Rag, and Rag survives. So I'm going to get rid of that Flamewalker because I don't want to be taking 2 extra random damage for every time I get hit by a spell. Then I'm going to Hero Power. And this is a really good example of why This is a hard choice because he's got Antonidas on the board. I'm hoping Ragnaros is going to kill it. But if he doesn't, he can give himself 2 fireballs next turn just by fireballing, and then the fireball turns in. Ragnaros leaves Antonidas on the board, allowing him to... He can't kill me because I've got 15 damage, and he can only fireball twice unless he's carrying a Frostbolt. So if he's got a Frostbolt in his hand, I'm dead. Next turn, I can silence Antonidas and at least get that out of the way. He's going to kill my Bear Druid with his Archmage Antonidas. Then he's going to fireball my Ragnaros, and he's at 9 health, so he can't leave one of my minions on the board to go to his face. So he is going to fireball my Ancient of Lore, leaving me with 14 health, and he's still got Antonidas, and I am in some trouble right now. But I got a few choices. I can Wrath and get Antonidas off the board. Wrath is choose one, either deal a damage and draw a card, which is really good if you top deck it shortly after you play Astral Communion, because you don't want to be getting a true drop. So what you're going to use is you're going to just 1-hit a minion rather than 3, and then it'll draw you another card, just like basically getting a Wild Growth. But I'm going to use it now to take out Archmage Antonidas, and then I'm going to put Sylvanas on the board. And he's got to kill Sylvanas unless he can kill me outright. And I know he's got 2 fireballs, but 2 fireballs won't kill me. So he's protecting himself with Sledge Belcher. I've got my Ancient of War, though. And I'm going to Hero Power, but I'm concerned about getting killed, so I don't want to run into the Sledge Belcher. Especially since if the Sledge Belcher hits my Ancient of War, it's going to die anyway. So he gets Ragnaros from his gang up, but it's a little too late. I was really lucky that it took him that long to draw it, or that he had to protect himself with other cards and couldn't summon Ragnaros if he's had it in his hand for a while. And now I'm going to silence that and go to his face, and then I'm going to finish him off with my improved hero power. And that was a very long game against the Tempo Mage with the Astral Communion Ramp Druid.